Welcome back. The Legacy Trail has quite the legacy. Today, the Legacy Trail is known as one of the top 10 bike trails in Florida. It's a 15-mile paved trail from Sarasota near Palmer Ranch to Venice, but it was once part of a historic railroad route that provided passenger service, including the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, which was headquartered in Venice until 1992. Now, the Trust for Public Land wants to buy an additional 7.2 miles from CSX Railroad to extend the trail north to Payne Park in Sarasota, a project that could cost up to $70 million. While a lot of those folks who enjoy the trail love the idea, so do some lawyers who might sue, saying the land should revert back to homeowners whose properties are along the railroad's right-of-way. And joining us for more on the Legacy Trail is ABC 7 reporter Adam Cellini. And joining us by Skype is Roger Norman, co-director of the nonprofit Friends of the Legacy Trail. And Roger, let me start with you. When you first heard that lawyers were trying to get involved in order to represent the homeowners along the Legacy Trail, what was your reaction?
God bless lawyers.
Naturally. Did you have any concerns that if this got into litigation and that if in the end it would cost a lot more to do this, it would put in jeopardy the whole entire project?
Well, the short answer is no, because I defer to, as you showed on the videos, I defer to the expertise of the county and particularly the Trust for Public Land, who's been down this road before, to make sure that that everybody is doing things according to the way they should. That if there is an issue with payment of the landowners, it's addressed properly.
Adam, how often does this happen? Because obviously, you know, when you interviewed Mr. Hearn, this is something that he specializes in.
Yeah, I think this happens just about every single time railroads are acquired under this Rails for Trails Act, because this law group has sort of monopolized that very, very specific niche in the courts. They go out, they have cases open all over the country from East Coast to West Coast, they told me, and they have a high percentage kind of rate of return. I mean, really, the precedent has been set in the courts. If a railroad track is acquired and the trails are set in and the ownership changes, those people are owed money for their properties. And Aaron Fox has seen this, and the group with Thorne Hearn and the attorneys under him have noticed this, and they can basically take that to the property owners and say, you know, we can almost guarantee you your money if you just sign on the dotted line and say you want to take this to court.
A couple of questions. How much does that mean per home?
It's tough to tell. What's interesting is that Sarasota County, during the existing Legacy Trail, actually set a precedent with those cases about valuing properties, and there's an equation that goes along with it. I don't know the details of it. He kind of explained it to me in basic terms, and I don't know the exact details, but there's a very specific equation about valuing the property near those railroad tracks, and that precedent was set in Sarasota County, and it varies from property to property.
Roger, I want to talk about the future plans for the Legacy Trail coming up in the next block, but are you concerned that if you're going to run into this issue, all the while that you're trying to extend the trail, there are some plans to take it all the way to Tampa, that this is just going to drive up costs?
Well, obviously it's going to, even if the federal government is paying for this, it's all our tax dollars here that are paying for this. So, but I think I'm a strong advocate of extending the trail, and I think the benefits will are just tremendous for doing so.
All right. We are just getting started with this conversation, and we'll pick up our discussion of the Legacy Trail right after we check on the weather. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the proposal to extend the Legacy Trail into downtown Sarasota. A federal loophole could also lead to legal payouts for homeowners who live along the planned extension. Joining us for more on tonight's topic is ABC 7 reporter Adam Cellini, and joining us by Skype is Roger Norman with the organization Friends of the Legacy Trail. I just texted back and forth with our state representative, Joe Guders, who said that although he was trying for $15 million from the state this year, that did not happen. So that's one component of the funding that is not taking place right now, but the rest of it hopefully comes from the feds. But we're dealing, Adam, with some very uncertain budgetary times up in Washington.
Yeah, absolutely, and funding cannot be more important and more of a, I think, a question mark right now for the Legacy Trail project. What they did, they're negotiating the contract right now, and they broke it up into 2 phases so that it could be affordable for the county because they do want to get it done, but they just can't pay for all of it right away. So the negotiations between the county and CSX are now under contract, which means they've kind of agreed and signed that contract, but it has to be ratified. And it's in 2 parts. The county, I believe, and actually Roger probably knows a lot about this in his position, I believe the county needs to pay $20 million or make a move towards $20 million of that total dollar amount by the end of this year. So, you know, the clock is definitely ticking on funding.
Roger, I know this gets complicated, and parts of what I'm going to ask you are not in your bailiwick here, but how does this package get put together? Because I saw initial stories that this may cost something like $28 million to get done, and then we see stories that, you know, of $65 up to $70 million. What goes into all of that?
Well, so on the cost side, as Patrick Louie from the county said in the first piece, the value of the corridor was based on an appraisal, an independent appraiser, mutually paid for by the county, the Trust for Public Land, and CSX. So that established the value of the corridor. It included a premium for the fact that it was a single corridor. And then that price was discounted by 14% to establish the $38 million acquisition side. On the where does the money equation come from, the county has identified $8.6 million available now. That's not the $20 million that was negotiated with CSX. And so there's discussions about, can the county find more money now by the end of December, or does CSX and TPL in the county need to renegotiate the amount of money down to make it affordable? Basically, you buy a shorter segment of the trail now and longer segments in the next year or 2.
Well, a couple of things, because we're not just talking about land acquisition here. There's a lot more that goes into it after you buy the land. Could you explain that for a moment?
Yes, sure. The Friends of the Legacy Trail position has been clear from the start that we believe that the county needs to go first in acquiring a segment of the trail, and then we, FLT, are prepared to try to raise funds. Several of the big foundations in the area are also agreed to participate in raising funds for that. And then the county would be eligible for state funds under a program named Sun Trail. It's a shared use, non-motorized trail that the state of Florida finances to a total of $25 million a year. And then there's opportunities for federal funds and perhaps grants. Who knows how that's going to play out.
But if you could explain to folks, we're not just talking, you have to do some things in terms of perhaps removing the train tracks, but you're paving it and other amenities, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
So first you have to acquire the trail, and we would expect that in fact, we've offered once the county acquires a segment of the trail, then the first thing I think would be to remove the trails in the ties, and then do some land clearing. And then just like the existing Legacy Trail, there was some shell that was applied before it was paved about 2 years after the acquisition. So it became usable as a trail for mountain bikes anyways.
What is the vision here? I mean, we know what we have now. How far do you want to see this extended? And is, you know, I've heard Tampa. Is there anything like that anywhere?
Yes. So the state of Florida has actually taken a lead in trying to connect major trails across the state of Florida through this Sun Trail program that I just mentioned. The legislature has allocated $25 million a year. The county, with our assistance, tried to compete for some of that money last year. But we didn't own the corridor, didn't even have a sale contract that year, and there's so many other good trail building opportunities across the state that we were not shovel ready, and so shovel ready projects got the funding. So one of the potential sources of funds here to supplement county funds is this Sun Trail money. If the county owns the corridor, then I would expect we'd be very eligible for design funds for designing the rail, the trail, as well as perhaps some construction funds.
Adam,
And of course, there'll be a need for overpasses, and it's the Florida Department of Transportation that paid for the overpass on 41 and is paying for the planned overpass later.
okay, I want to get one more question to Adam here. In terms of this litigation, where are we? Where do we stand right now? How long would this take? How many homeowners are we talking about? When would this all play out?
Well, I think according to Thor Hearn, when we spoke, 120 property owners had agreed to be a part of that class action suit, and that's just the number right now. As I mentioned, 270 properties, in their opinion, are eligible for that money. It's a process. I think it takes a few years. The first time around with the existing Legacy Trail definitely took a few years for everybody to get their money physically from the federal government. It's bureaucracy. It takes some time. According to Thor Hearn, they are not going to file anything until the negotiations are complete. So they will wait for negotiations to be over, then they file, and then that kicks off, but it's in federal court in D.C.
All right, thanks a lot. When we take a quick break, when we return, we'll have final thoughts on the expansion of the Legacy Trail and its legal repercussions, along with what some of our viewers are saying about Friday's topic, the week in Washington. Welcome back. Should Sarasota County's Legacy Trail be extended even further? How could it benefit those who live along the proposed route? Our guests join us right now for final thoughts. And Roger, let me begin with that simple question. How is this, if it can get done, going to benefit the people who enjoy Sarasota County?
Well, that's a really easy question, because it's hard to look at the rail corridor now. It's not been used in over 25 years, so it's hard to think that the status quo is a benefit to the county. The corridor is overgrown, it's unused, and the rails and the ties are no longer serviceable, so it has no benefit to anybody in the county. Contrast that with a trail that has over 175,000 annual users, and that's not a make-believe number. We have electronic counters on the trail to record how many people are using the trail. And the benefits, I could talk. To me, one of the most significant benefits is what many of our users say is just the security and serenity of being on the trail, rather than being on sidewalks or on bike lanes.
And Adam, I don't know if you could answer this question, but how often do some of these litigations result in the fact a project that everybody wants to see just goes away?
It's hard to tell, I mean, I don't think I talked to enough people maybe to know the exact answer when you're talking to, the lawyers involved. It's kind of like the fox watching the hen house. I think they tell you that. It never would, and it never could. Really, we're not in the negotiation room, so it's hard to tell from this distance. But I think we're just hoping it doesn't. Maybe CSX is aware of it, maybe not. Maybe the federal government gets involved somehow. But from where we're standing, it's really hard to tell. We just kind of cross our fingers and hope it goes through.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of our viewers are saying about Friday's topic, the week in Washington. On Thursday, former FBI Director James Comey testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee, claiming President Trump asked him to take a loyalty pledge and to stop the investigation into General Michael Flynn. Comey says the White House outright lied about him and the FBI. On Friday, President Trump rebuked the testimony, insisting he did not order Comey to drop the Russia investigation and calling Comey a leaker. Here's what some of you are saying about it. Shannon Zelinsky writes, Comey has no reason to lie. This feud is just another distraction to keep the American people from looking at the real truth, which is that the Russians did everything in their power to interfere with the 2016 election. William Smith writes, Comey was owned by the deep state. The truth came out and Trump looks good. Mainstream media looks as corrupt as they are, and Comey looks like a fool. And Charlene Bing writes, Comey isn't a leaker, he's a whistleblower. Well, what do you think about the expansion of the Legacy Trail and the legal loopholes being used to get money for homeowners? Join the conversation by visiting our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, you can watch past Roundtable discussions. They're on demand on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to both our guests for being here tonight. Adam Cellini is a reporter here at ABC 7 News, and Roger Norman is the co-director of the Friends of the Legacy Trail Group. He joined us by Skype.